The 2008 Greek riots started on the 6th of December 2008 when Alexandros Grigoropoulos, a 15-year-old Greek student, was killed by a special officer in Exarchia district of central Athens. The killing of the young student by police resulted in large protests and demonstrations, which escalated to widespread rioting, with numerous rioters damaging property and engaging riot police with Molotov cocktails, stones, and other objects. Demonstrations and rioting soon spread to several other cities, including Thessaloniki, the country's second largest city, and international cities in solidarity. Newspaper Kathimerini called the rioting the worst Greece has seen since the restoration of democracy in 1974. While the unrest was triggered by the shooting, commentators described the reactions as expressing deeper causes as well, especially a widespread feeling of frustration in the younger generation about specific economic problems of the country, a rising unemployment rate among the young generation, and a perception of general inefficiency and corruption in Greek state institutions. The fatal shooting that triggered the riots and protests took place in the evening of the 6th of December 2008, shortly after 9 p.m, in the Exarchia district of central Athens. According to press reports, two special guards had been engaged in a minor verbal clash with a small group of teenagers in a main street of Exarchia, outside a shop. On driving away in their police car, they were then confronted by another small group at a nearby street crossing. The two guards were ordered by the Greek Police Centre of Operations to disengage immediately and withdraw from the confrontation site. However, the two guards did not comply and were later accused of insubordination. Instead, the two special guards chose to station their police vehicle outside the PASOK headquarters, left the car and went to Javela Street on foot in order to confront the youngsters. Following some exchange of verbal abuse that, according to several witnesses, was initiated by the guards, one of them, Gorkoneas, fired his gun. The initial police report on the incident claims that the special guard shot in response to a renewed attack by the youths that involved throwing stones and bottles. Eyewitnesses who spoke to Greek media, however, reported that the special guards were not attacked by the youths, nor was their physical safety put in danger at any time. Instead, the special guards approached the group and verbally assaulted them in order to provoke them. The special guard said he fired 3 rounds, 2 warning shots in the air and a third aimed on the ground. Several eyewitnesses said they believed the policeman had directly targeted the youngsters. The victim, Alexandros, was a 15-year-old student who lived in the affluent northern Athens suburb of Paliopsychigou and attended a private school. Immediately following the shooting, he was transported to the nearby hospital, where he was pronounced dead. A criminal investigation was initiated against the police officer who fired the shot on a charge of murder, while his partner was charged as an accomplice. Both were suspended from duty and were kept in detention. The defence counsel that was initially hired resigned shortly after accepting the case, citing personal reasons. On the 10th of December, Alexis Kouyas, counsel for the defendants, said that preliminary results of the ballistic tests apparently show that it was indeed a ricochet, and the two policemen will only appear before the public prosecutor after the forensic, toxicological, and ballistic examinations had been completed. However, the results of forensic tests indicated that the bullet that killed Grigoropoulos had entered the youth's body directly. This cast doubt on claims by the 37-year-old policeman charged with the boy's murder that the bullet had been fired as a warning and ricocheted. On the morning of the 11th of December, Dimitris Tovolas, former MP and economic minister under the previous government formed by PASOK, agreed to serve as the counsel for the Grigoropoulos family. On the 17th of December, the ballistics report was also released and stated that the bullet that killed Grigoropoulos had in fact ricocheted. However, forensic reports conducted on the 21st of December concluded that the bullet was not fired in the air, but rather towards the group of teenagers, though there may have been no intention to kill the boy. Within the hour following the shooting of Grigoropoulos, angry demonstrators took to the streets in and around Exarchia, and violent confrontations with the police erupted. Meanwhile, similar demonstrations were reported in other Greek cities as well, including Thessaloniki, Yanina, Chania, Corfu, Xanthi, Kozani, and Larissa. After midnight, the demonstrations in Athens turned into violent rioting in some central streets of the city. By dawn on Sunday, 24 police officers had been injured, one seriously, and 31 shops, 9 banks, and 25 cars had been either seriously damaged, burned, or destroyed within the downtown area. By Sunday the 7th of December 2008, 38 vehicles were damaged, 13 police officers were injured, and 22 rioters were arrested. The next day saw police assess damage as daily schedules resumed and rioting subsided. However, all was not quiet, as all over Greece, several thousands of high school students walked out of their schools and marched on local police stations, throwing eggs, paint bombs, and water bottles. Protesters continued to occupy university campuses around the nation, while organisations such as the Communist Party of Greece announced plans for protests later that day. The massive demonstrations of that evening were confronted by police using tear gas. During the demonstrations, some 11 public buildings around the central plaza of Athens, Syntagma Square, were set on fire. Students around Greece proceeded to occupy their school buildings in protest. Rioters also set fire to the Kostis Palamas building that led to the total destruction of the European Law Library, situated at the corner of Akademias and Sina Street. After the fire, the rector of the National and Kapovistrian University of Athens, Christos Kitas, resigned, but some days later withdrew his resignation. A police report released Tuesday the 9th of December, in the morning, put the numbers of injured police officers at 12, arrested rioters at 87, and persons who had been brought through a public prosecutor at 176. In Thessaloniki, 16 rioters were arrested for theft, 3 of whom were under 18 years old. After 4 days of rioting, some citizens began to act against the rioters, and some rioters fired on police officers. Citizens attacked people that were found looting and were seen throwing stones to protect their belongings. In the city of Patras, according to the city's mayor, members of far-left organisations took part in the violence. In Athens, 7 police officers were injured, 4 rioters were arrested for violence against the police, 12 were arrested for theft, and 55 were arrested for rioting, with another 25 people of non-Greek nationality arrested for the same reason. In a report on Tuesday, Amnesty International accused the Greek police of brutality in handling the riots. The Greek Department of Amnesty International cancelled the scheduled celebrations on the 10th of December for the 60th anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in response to the police violence in Greece. The crisis deepened on Wednesday the 10th, when the General Confederation of Greek Workers and the Civil Servants Confederation, representing 2.5 million workers, or roughly half of the total Greek workforce, called a one-day general strike in protest against the government's economic policies. Rioting continued in Athens as thousands of workers gathered for anti-government protests at Syntagma Square. On Thursday the 11th of December, 4,000 students marched against the police, with many protesters throwing firebombs at the officers. On Friday, students attacked police outside the Parliament building. Riot police fired tear gas in response. Heavy rain helped curtail demonstrations compared to previous days. The protests inspired small protests in some European cities, sowing fears of copycat riots elsewhere. On the same day, Greek police issued an appeal for more tear gas after supplies ran low, since more than 4,600 capsules were released against the protesters by that time. On Saturday the 13th of December, large groups of demonstrators gathered in front of the Greek Parliament in central Athens. Despite the fact that the protest in front of the Greek Parliament was relatively peaceful, the riot police attempted to dissolve it at 1:30 by using tear gas and violence. On the same day, about 100 protesters firebombed a police station near the Exarchia district where Alexandros was killed. On Sunday the 14th of December, students joined residents of the Exarchia district to demand the renaming of that street in honour of a dead teenager. Also, at least 4 radio stations based in Athens were occupied by protesters. In Thessaloniki, students demonstrated in solidarity with all the people who were arrested as a result of the rioting over the past week. The second week. On Monday the 15th of December, students gathered outside the Attica General Police Directorate in central Athens. The riot police chose to dissolve the protest through violence after some of the demonstrators threw eggs against one riot police squad. Many of the demonstrators were of school age. Several newspapers report that the protesters were provoked by a policeman. In Piraeus, approximately 300 students rallied outside the local Korydallos prison and taunted the police, who fired tear gas to disperse them. According to teachers' unions, some 600 schools were under occupation, while 150 university facilities across the country had been taken over, according to the Greek Ministry of Education. In Ioannina, the local public radio station was occupied by students and far leftist groups. Rallies and demonstrations had also taken place in Chania, Heraklion, Larissa and Thessaloniki. On Tuesday the 16th of December, rallies and protests took place outside many police stations in Athens. Early in the afternoon, masked youths emerged from the university complex in Zographou and firebombed nearby Athens riot police headquarters. 6 police officers were injured and 10 vehicles were burnt. Meanwhile, a group of around 30 protesters infiltrated the studios of public broadcaster ERT and interrupted a news broadcast featuring Prime Minister Kostas Karamanlis. For about a minute, the protesters stood in front of a camera holding banners reading, "Stop watching, get out into the streets." ERT chairman Christos Panagopoulos tendered his resignation over the incident, but it was rejected by the government. It is unacceptable for unidentified individuals to deprive others of their right to information, he said. On Wednesday the 17th, a rally was held outside the capital's main courthouses, where youths threw eggs and fruit at the police. There was also one demonstration organised by the All Workers Militant Front in central Athens from Ammonia Square to the Greek Parliament, drawing around 5,000 people. Student protesters evaded security guards at the Acropolis of Athens and unfurled 2 giant pink banners over a wall near the Parthenon to rally support for continued demonstrations. Thursday, 18th for 12. Demonstrations in all Europe. One banner read, while the other simply bore the message, resistance, in Greek, English, Spanish, and German. We chose this monument to democracy, this global monument, to proclaim our resistance to state violence and demand rights in education and work. We did it to send a message globally and to all Europe, said the protesters. A government spokesman said this protest was inexcusable and accused the protesters of tarnishing Greece's image abroad. In Kesariani, near the riot police headquarters that were targeted by youths on Tuesday, a group of anarchists torched a police bus. The only person in the bus, the driver, managed to escape unhurt. In another protest, about 40 people, including workers, immigrants, and unemployed citizens, occupied the offices of the country's main labour union. The union's president, Yannis Panagopoulos, said the protest was mistargeted. A protest was also held outside the prefecture of Thessaloniki offices and the Ministry for Macedonia, which is also based in Thessaloniki. Later that night, a homemade explosive device planted outside a branch of Eurobank in the Thessaloniki district of Kalamaria damaged the building's facade when it detonated. A similar device smashed the windows of a local citizens' information and service centre. In Ioannina, the town hall was occupied, while in Chania, a local television station remained under occupation by protesters for about an hour. On Thursday the 18th, demonstrations once again took place in central Athens, with more than 12,000 protesters crowding the streets near the Greek Parliament in a peaceful demonstration in central Athens, which turned violent when a group of protesters broke away from the rally and threw rocks and firebombs at police and buildings near Parliament, overturned a car and set fire to trash cans, splashed the police with red paint, and tried to burn down the city's main Christmas tree, which had just been replaced after being torched during the previous week's riots. The police responded with tear gas and flash grenades and drove the rioters back towards the administrative headquarters of National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. After another round of pitched battles between masked rioters and the police, several hundred protesters entered the School of Law, Economics and Political Sciences. Christmas shoppers fled the streets and retailers rolled down their shutters as protesters smashed storefronts and burned at least 4 cars. More than 1,500 people demonstrated peacefully in the western suburb of Athens Peristeri, following another shooting of a 16-year-old on Wednesday, the 17th of December. The teenager was struck in the hand by a bullet fired by an unidentified assailant while sitting in a park outside a local high school with friends. The police admitted that they had made a mistake in their initial statement that the boy was hit by an air gun pellet. Tests revealed it was either a .38 Special or a .357 Magnum bullet. Officers are investigating the incident, anxious to disprove rumours that an off-duty or undercover policeman fired the shot. The police spokesman said that no officers were in the area at the time of the shooting, but an investigation was underway. Masked youths attacked the French Institute in Athens with firebombs. Spark in Athens, fire in Paris. Insurrection is coming. Read one graffiti, spray painted onto the building's wall in French. On Saturday the 20th of December, about 150 youths attacked the Christmas tree once again at Syntagma Square in central Athens at around 4 o'clock, hanging trash bags from its branches before clashing with riot police. The Christmas tree protest had been advertised as part of a day of events in Greece and around the world to commemorate Grigoropoulos' shooting. On Saturday evening, masked men broke into the building housing the offices of Tiresias SA, a company that keeps records of delinquent debaters and cardholders, and firebombed the company's offices. The fire was extinguished, but the company's offices were destroyed. rioters using the National Technical University of Athens as a base launched attacks against police, throwing rocks and petrol bombs and erecting roadblocks. In Thessaloniki, a group of anarchists briefly occupied a radio station and theatre before disrupting and threw cakes and candy at Mayor Vasilis Papageorgopoulos and one of his deputies during an open-air charity event near the theatre. The third week. On Tuesday, the 23rd of December, more than 3,000 chanting protesters marched through Athens. During the demonstration, one police car was damaged. At 5:50 local time, shots were fired at a riot police bus in Athens, near the riot police headquarters in Zographou. None of the 19 officers on board were injured, authorities said, but the attack raised concern that violence against police could escalate. The shots were fired from the grounds of the National Technical University of Athens, facilities in Zographou, known as Polytechniopoulos. One bullet blew out 2 tires on the bus, while another struck the engine. The police found 7.62 mm caliber bullet casings at the scene of the shooting. After ballistic examinations, it was announced that there were at least 2 shooters who used Kalashnikov-type rifles, and that the particular weapons used in the attack had not been used in any other attack, robbery, or other criminal incident in Greece. On Thursday the 25th of December 2008, in central Athens and the suburb of Palio-Phaliron, there was a string of arson attacks against banks and car dealerships, causing widespread damage but no injuries. There was also an attack against the offices of the Ministry of Development in the city centre. Arsonists also targeted the car of Deputy Environment and Public Works Minister Stavros Kalogiannis outside his home in the northwestern town of Ioannina, destroying the vehicle. The assailants dosed the wheels of a parked car with flammable liquid before setting it alight, according to the fire service. By Wednesday the 31st of December 2008, the occupation of Greek universities in Athens and Thessaloniki had ended, and the administrative officials had begun assessing the cost of damage done during the occupation. However, in the early morning of Monday the 5th of January 2009, at least 2 masked gunmen fired over 20 rounds at a riot police unit guarding the Greek Minister of Culture in central Athens, hitting a 21-year-old officer in the chest and groin. The 21-year-old officer, Diamandis Matzounis, survived. On October the 11th, 2010, the mixed jury court of Amphissa found the 2 special guards guilty. Gorgoneas, the shooter, was found guilty of homicide with direct intention to cause harm, and Vasilis Saraliotis was found guilty as an accomplice. Gorgoneas was sentenced to lifetime and an additional 15 months of imprisonment, while Saraliotis was sentenced to 10 years of imprisonment. In July 2019, the life sentence against Gorgoneas was overturned on appeal and reduced to 13 years imprisonment, and Gorgoneas was then released from prison. To this day, the 6th of December is a constant reminder of the life and death of Alexandros Grigoropoulos, where mainly protests and violence escalate against police,